I started with the basic gray green at heart collection that I've had for quite some time now. My whole point in kind of mass producing these cards was to try and use up as much of the pattern paper and embellishments as I had. So I decided to make 4 cards for my salon using the Stamping Bella Manicurabellas images, with the idea that when people buy gift certificates from me, they can get a nice little matching card to go with it. So once I got the images stamped onto the cardstock, I chose all the colors of Copic markers I wanted to use to color them. And for this I used a lot of Copic markers. I didn't include the coloring of the images in this video. I found when I went to edit that my head was in the way, so sorry about that. Once I had the images colored, I used a circle Spellbinders die to cut out all the images. And then I went on to assembling the card fronts. So with me, when I'm mass producing, I do everything in stages. Like I colored all the images at once, I cut them all out, and now I go on to doing the card fronts. So I chose 4 of the more solid colored papers from the Green at Heart collection, and I cut them all down to 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8. That way I can adhere those to a standard A2 card front with like a little bit of a border. And then my next step is to start coming up with a layout. So I decided to keep the layout fairly simple and just chose different pattern papers and trim them down for the card front. I kept the layouts on all the 4 cards the same. Since this is mass production, it's the easiest way to go. It makes it the fastest. And this obviously is a great way to use up scraps and whatnot. So I just kind of fiddled around with the pattern papers I wanted. And then once I had that all set, I went and adhered all the pattern papers to the card fronts. And then I don't show it in the video either, but I added either pink or orange sheer AmyR ribbon to each card front as well. Again, working just in steps, doing everything all at once, which makes everything go a lot quicker. And then once I had all the card fronts assembled, I went on to do my sentiments, which I used a Just For You sentiment from my Sassy sentiment set, and I just stamped that onto white cardstock and used a Stampin' Up! Punch to punch it out. And once I had those guys done, I decided to sponge all the edges of the main images and the sentiments with either pink or orange ink. I just alternated 2 pink, 2 orange, just to kind of give it a little extra something, because to me it was looking a little plain as I was making them. So once that was done, I decided to add buttons to all the card fronts, and I used 4 buttons on each card front. My whole objective here was to use up as much of this as possible, because this collection is old as the hills and I wanted to use it up. So I placed the buttons where I wanted it, punched holes with my AmyR Memory Keepers tool, and then just used white embroidery thread and needle to sew it onto the card front. And I just sew on all 4 at once, and then I just tie the 2 ends on the back of the card front, as that's going to be adhered down on the actual card base. And I find that's kind of the best way to keep buttons in place, is to actually sew them right onto the card front. So once that was done, I used dimensionals to adhere the main image and the sentiment to the card, just to kind of pop it up a little bit. And you can see I wasn't quite sure where I was going to put the sentiment, and always with me it's just kind of fiddling around. I never have a plan set in stone when I'm making cards. And I also used a stitch brad along the top of each main image. So once I had all the 4 card fronts done, I just used Scotch tape to tape down like the ribbon, the end of the brad, and where the embroidery floss is, just to make it easier when I'm adhering all the card fronts. And then here I'm just scoring all 4 card bases. I think this is Kiwi Kiss cardstock from Stampin' Up! It was in color a couple years ago. I'm not even sure. But yeah, I scored all 4 of those and then adhered the card fronts using my ATG gun and adhesive. Just put that around the edges and lined it up on the card front, and that was it. So then for the inside of the card, I wanted to keep it pretty simple, and I just adhered scraps of the same pattern paper, just what was left over, just to dress up the inside a little bit, as obviously I didn't want to do too much because when they get the gift certificate, that'll take up the bulk of the space anyway. But it's nice to kind of open up a card and have something on the inside. So super quick and easy. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!